Hi there, Karen Flaherty here from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well today and enjoying your summer. Today, we're going to be talking about the Gate 4, which is typically called the Gate of Answers or Youthful Folly, and sometimes logical answers. Okay, so we got the Sun in Gate 4 this week. It started in the morning of August 11th and it goes until August 17th. And then we've got the Earth in Gate 49. And so we've got the gate 4 coming off the top of the ajna right here on the right side, which is the logical channel, which is why we call it logical answers or the possibility of logical answers. And then the gate 49 is down here coming off the bottom of the solar plexus, which is the gate of principles. And if those principles are taken to the extreme, it can also be called the gate of revolution. So this week we've got the 1 and the 8 connected, and so that's our only channel that gets connected all week. And so the throat and the G center are defined. And so if you have, so we've got the 1 in the south node, and we've got the 8 in the in Venus, and so those will be in all week. And so basically, you'll have the throat and the G connected. If you happen to be a generator, for example, and you do have a connection from the G to the sacral already, this will basically give you throat energy because you'll have the entire 1-8 defined, and that will give you energy to the throat as well. So if you've got anything from the G to the sacral, including this one that goes around here, that makes you a generator, this 1-8 will have you feel this week as if you're a manifesting generator. So it's a nice kind of energy to have. So with the Sun in Gate 4, we can call it logical answers. It's also called youthful folly, or the formulation in the original I Ching. And so this is the energy to beguile and succeed despite ignorance, freedom from retribution. And what this means is that you can come up with this gate. You can have lots of ideas. You can have lots of possible answers, but they may not be the right answers. And so the logic that's kind of inherent here helps you to come up with different solutions for problems, different ideas. But the funny thing is, and you've probably seen this in life before, is that those logical answers can always come up with a way to make things seem as if you're right? And we usually look for the answers that help us to look right, to help us be right, to help us win the discussion or the argument or whatever it is. But this is typically the place where we get caught up in so many ideas that seem correct, but that don't really have any understanding behind them. And we'll talk about that when we get to the gene key 4. But basically, you can have answer after answer after answer, and if it doesn't get you where you want to go, and it's either prejudiced or not objective or very subjective, right? Then it doesn't help to win the argument. It might win the argument, but it's not going to win it with any degree of understanding, and it's not going to win it with any peace at the end. There's a great quote I see all the time on Facebook that says, "Do you want to be right or do you want to have peace?" And so this is the embodiment of that. This gate 4 is the embodiment of that. You can have lots of answers, but is it going to bring you peace? Is it going to just win the argument, or are you going to be able to have peace afterward? So the incarnation crosses this week are the cross of explanation, solutions, and the rebel or revolution. And then with the gate 49, this is another interesting one because it's all about principles, your principles, holding to principles, keeping the principles of the culture or group. And but it's also about revolution, because if those principles are stamped upon or if those principles are endangered in some way, it can lead to revolution. This gate happened to be in when, for example, the Arab Spring started. All of the riots and the protests that occurred in Egypt and a number of the Middle Eastern countries started during, well, Gate 49 happened to be in transit in the spring of that year, and it was because their principles were being trampled. So it says, ideally, the transformation of forms based on the highest principles and not simply for power. So it comes from a rather altruistic look at principles, where people are actually being helped by the principles and not trampled upon. In the Gene Keys, reaction is the shadow, revolution is the gift, and rebirth is the CD. And so when we look at the Gene Key 4, what we see is the shadow is intolerance, the gift is understanding, and the CD is forgiveness. And so on the graphic, Richard says, only when we forgive ourselves fully can we begin to return non-love with love. And so this is about getting to a place where the answers don't matter as much as the love, right? Because if we're in a very logical place and we're in a place where we're just having one answer after another, it can feel very lacking in love. And what he's saying is that when we forgive ourselves and realize that we don't have to have the answers for everything, that we can come to a place of understanding and forgiveness, that we'll be able to move from the non-love, the logical, very dry and mercurial kind of logic, to a place of being loving and compassionate and forgiving. And he also says mental assuredness cannot make the body feel safe. So even though this is a place where supposedly we have logical answers, that mental knowing, that knowledge that comes with the solutions, is not necessarily going to have us feel safe. It doesn't secure us in any way. And so it's much better to have a feeling, he says, from the body, from within the body, from understanding where we are and understanding what's possible, than to just have one answer after another answer after another. He also says true understanding lies outside the domain of the mind. Again, getting outside the mind and really into the body and figuring out what really makes sense. And he also says forgiveness is the thunderbolt that is released when a being attains Christ consciousness. And it of course, more generically, can be a unity consciousness where we're striving for peace as opposed to just being right. It's where he actually says that the children that are coming in now, the Gen Z and millennials, are actually coming in without the prejudice and the separation that our previous generations had known so much, and that it allows us, or encourages us, to all move into that feeling where we're not just trying to be right, where we're actually trying to be peaceful. So there's a number of personalities in this Sun Gate 4 who were born, but besides having, just remember, besides having the supposedly logical answers and a very logical way of thinking with the answers, or the possible answers, they also had the 49 in their Earth. And so these were revolutionaries, right? We've got everybody from Napoleon Bonaparte to Fidel Castro to Julia Child, who we'll actually talk about as a revolutionary in the field of cooking. Magic Johnson, who created his own revolution by in basketball and in the business world. I'm sure there are others who stand out to you as revolutionary in their own way. So today we're talking about Julia Child. She was born August 15th, 1912 in Pasadena, California. She's a generator with a 5-1 profile. She is the left angle cross of revolution. And she was known as a cooking teacher, author, and television personality. I'm sure she's before many of our times. I don't really remember seeing her on TV, but I'm just bringing her up as somebody who was described by her documentarians because she was revolutionary, a feminist, and a game changer. And the book that she wrote was called Mastering the Art of French Cooking. It was published in 1961. And then soon after that, in 1963, she got her own TV show called The French Chef. And it was actually on it was broadcast in Boston on the public, the PBS channel, WGBH, where she was on there for quite a while, at least 10 years. She wrote approximately about a dozen cookbooks over that time. It was on a number of different specials, even after she stopped doing the French chef specifically. But she's got a very interesting chart. You wouldn't think of this kind of a chart as a revolutionary, but she certainly was. She basically brought French cooking to the American culture, the American people in her day, because it was the 60s and 70s, called it the Housewives of America. And so she started quite a revolution in the United States as a result of bringing French cooking into everybody's homes. She was the first TV chef, and this was the first large-scale French cooking book that was on the market. She did write it with two other authors who were students with her in the Le Cordon Bleu school in Paris, which she studied at for a number of years. She and her female colleagues in the school were the ones who put this book together for the American audience, but it was in French, and Julia translated it into the English and then published it in 1961. So it was quite an undertaking. She had quite an interesting childhood and growing up period. She was from a privileged family in Pasadena, California. Her father was a very early settler in California and was successful in California real estate. Her mother was an heiress from a paper company, and so she led a very privileged childhood. Her mother went to Smith College in Massachusetts, as did Julia. Beyond that, she started working in New York. She was in Los Angeles, and then finally wound up in Washington, D.C. as World War II started, and volunteered for the OSS, an intelligence agency of the government. And she had to do that because she did volunteer for the women's military positions, but she was too tall. She was 6'2" and couldn't get into those. The height limitation was 6 foot. And so she wasn't able to get into those. So she volunteered for this intelligence agency. And as a result of her background and knowledge and education, she was promoted very quickly and really sent all over the world. She actually developed which was her first foray into formulations in a cooking kind of way. She created a shark repellent for the Navy so that sharks would stay away from the bombs and the different ships that were going out. And that shark repellent is used to this day. So apparently it worked very well. She went on to, after the war, married her husband Paul, and who was also an OSS officer, and moved to Paris, where he was with the French embassy. And then that's when she started, because women as diplomats' wives couldn't really work. She started appreciating the French culinary experiences she was having, and started with the Le Cordon Bleu school and took many classes, including private classes with some of the chefs. But she was one of very few women in the class. And you can imagine in 1951, it was frowned upon for women to be in the kitchen at all. And so she was a revolutionary from the very start. She was a feminist. She was somebody who really she was a character. She wanted to do what she wanted to do, and she was able to do it well. So she does have that 4, of course, up in her coming off the top of the ajna, as well as the 24, which is about rationalization, and then the 47, which is all about mindset and having epiphanies. And with the open head and ajna, I would say that she was probably very creative in the recipes that she did come to put in the cookbook. And that cookbook, by the way, took 10 years for them to write. Even though 3 of them were working on it, it's got over 700 recipes, and it's quite a tome. And it's still being published to this day. So it is definitely held the test of time. She's got the 62, which is very interesting, both conscious and unconscious. She's got it 4 times in her chart. This is the gate of details. What better person to write a cookbook, right? And test the recipes and test the recipes and test them again than somebody with the 62 four times in their chart. She's also got the 23, which is articulation or assimilation. It's coming up with all these ideas and then being able to speak them to people. Off the throat, she's also got the gate 12, which is all about caution. So she was very cautious about her reputation. She did keep everything very close to the vest. No one really even knew about her cancer diagnosis in the 60s until her memoir came out. She had a very cooperative marriage with her husband. He was very supportive of her work and helped her with the photography and the shoots and working in the kitchen, because most of the time she was using her own kitchen to shoot the program, to televise the program. It was all her own kitchen. In fact, that kitchen had been disassembled and reconstructed at the Smithsonian as part of the American history exhibits. She does have the 8, which is also up in her unconscious sun. The 8 is all about making a creative contribution to the world, and she certainly has done that. The 20 is being able to speak in the moment, and she had, from what I understand, a very colorful way of speaking. She was the personality. She was the original chef personality on TV. She was very colorful. She didn't mind making a mistake. She was very honest about what she was doing, and she also liked to be funny. To use some colorful language, use some sexual innuendos, and was just thought of as someone that was really fun to watch on TV. And that was unusual. That didn't happen. And again, it was the first cooking show. Off the G, she's got she's got the 3 channels. She's got this 15-5, which is all about being in the flow. So she could follow a recipe. She could follow a routine. She probably had a good routine for eating and sleeping and exercise. But she also had the 15, which is the love of humanity and the gate of extremes. So she could go from one end to the other. I'm sure it was very difficult and not so easy to be televising. I mean, just imagine what we all went through with Zoom over the past few years with COVID, and basically bringing Zoom and TV, cameras or sets or whatever it is into your own home, and children having to study at home. She was doing that in the 60s, and believe me, there were very little in the way of technology for doing things at home. Most things were done in the studios. And so it was really very revolutionary from a TV perspective as well, for her to be working in her home. And again, her husband was by her side, helping her with all that. And when they were back from Paris, that occurred in Cambridge, I believe, right outside Boston. She's got the 2 and the 14, which creates the channel of the beat. And that this is all about making money. The 14 is about making money. The 2 is about allocation of resources and making sure that you're saving and spending the money appropriately. And with her background, with her childhood, she probably had a good regard for money and made quite a bit of it. Although I must say I was surprised to see that with her first TV shows, she was making $50 a show. And she had to pay for her own food. The $50 included the food, so it wasn't a lot when she started, but she was willing to do that. Off the Will Center, she's got the 21, and this is the gate of control. She was in charge. She was her own woman. She did take. It's also called the treasurer. So again, she was very careful with the money. But she did like to be in control of her own resources. And then off the sacral also, we've got the gate. So she had the energy to do it. She had an idea of where she was going all the time, self-love, self-direction with the G center. And then off here, we've got the 59, which is the gate of seduction and intimacy. She's got that twice here. Ironically, she doesn't have any everything else in the defense circuit, which, for example, the 27 would be all about cooking. She doesn't have that gate, but that's okay. Perhaps Paul did, and her husband. But she was, they were also childless. They tried to have children and couldn't. So she basically threw herself into the cooking. Off here, she's off the spleen. She's got the gate 48, which is all about details, depth, getting to the bottom of things, really understanding a subject well. And I would say she's done that. And the 32 is about having a business and being successful in that business and really being able to have the duration, the durability to create that. With the root, she's got the 360, which is all about evolution and growth and having a little trouble at the beginning, which she did in a number of her projects. The art of French, mastering the art of French cooking was not accepted immediately. They had to go back and do many, many rewrites of it. It was, they thought, what was it? The documentarians said that some of the critics, some of the editors said that it might, the book was so long and involved that it might frighten women when they read it. And so they had to go back and rewrite. She's also got the down here, it's all about finishing projects, and the 9 is focus, which I'm sure she had. And then she's got that 49, which is all about revolution. She had her principles. She believed when she it really encountered French cooking for the first time, and they loved eating out and they loved experimenting and trying new things. It really became a tenet of her life that she wanted to bring this type of cooking to the American people. And then also she's got the 41, which is the gate of creativity. And creative she was. She was very creative in the way she did things. Ironically, she's got the 37 in her Chiron, which was just about the time, around 50, was around the time, because don't forget she was born in 1912. So 1961 was when the book came out. 1963 exactly was when, right around her 50th birthday, was when the TV show started. And with that, she was able to basically embody this theme of the 37, which is right here. And it's about community and harmony and peace and bringing people together. And she did that through her cooking, through her TV show, through all the books she wrote, and the wonderful, TV specials that she had. So she actually had a quote about retiring, and she said, something like, when you're in this line of work, you don't ever retire. It's besides, retired people are boring. So she kept going pretty much until the end. She died in 2004 and was writing and doing interviews up until then. In fact, in 2003, just before she passed away, she got the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Bush. So with all that going on, happy birthday in heaven, Julia. And I hope you have a great week. Be aware of the answers that come to you. They may or may not be correct. They might be possible answers. They might be logical answers, but they may not bring peace. So just be aware of how much you want to be right versus how much you want peace in your life, because sometimes they don't play very well together. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Be well.